I tasted it before I understood it. A sharp bitterness bloomed across my tongue like a bruise, hidden beneath the chill of the ice in my tea. Not the cloying note of almond extract or the syrupy echo of amaretto, no. This was something else. Something cold. Clinical. Wrong. It hit the back of my throat like a warning shot. Metallic. Ancient. A flavor that clawed up from the oldest parts of me, instincts buried beneath years of civility and silk blouses. The kind of primal knowledge women carry in their bones but rarely use, until survival demands it. I hadn't felt that kind of raw fear since I was a girl dancing too close to danger in the jazz clubs of the Viewcare. God, how I used to flirt with shadows and call it living. But today? Today the shadows flirted back. I was sitting in the courtyard of the Gilded Lily, New Orleans' crown jewel of sophistication, tucked behind wrought iron gates and perfumed with blooming jasmine. Laughter floated on the air like bubbles in champagne. Silver clinked against porcelain. And I was dying. I just didn't know it yet. If you're still with me, maybe you've tasted that bitterness too. Maybe you've glanced down the hall and wondered if the monster wasn't under your bed, but brushing their teeth in the guest bathroom. Then keep reading. Because this isn't just a story. It's a reckoning. And survival tastes like blood and tea. It was late April, and the heat was already curling the edges of the day like a burned photograph. My daughter-in-law Serena had insisted on lunch. She said we needed to connect, her word, not mine, as if blood and proximity weren't enough. Since she and Julian moved into my home 6 months ago, we'd been orbiting each other like mismatched moons. I didn't want to come. Something in my chest had grown tight and wary around her. I chalked it up to grief, the lingering ache after my Marcus passed. But that wasn't it. Not entirely. I wore my emerald silk blouse that day. The one Marcus used to say made my eyes look like something pulled from the heart of the earth. I pinned on my grandmother's diamond studs. I wanted to look strong. Controlled. Unshakable. Even though my hands trembled when I reached for the fountain's edge, pretending to be fascinated by the koi weaving beneath the lily pads. Serena arrived 20 minutes late, of course. A performance. She kissed my cheek with lips as dry as secrets and offered me a smile that never touched her eyes. Navy blazer. Crisp trousers. Hair sprayed into a helmet that could withstand a hurricane. Efficiency embodied. Warmth be damned. She ordered kale. I got the crawfish étouffée. I'm 72, darling. I'll eat butter and spice until I'm ash. We talked about termites and humidity. Empty, polished words. Then her phone buzzed. She muttered something about work and stepped away toward the hostess stand. That's when I took the sip. The first sip. That's when the woman next to me saved my life. She grabbed my wrist, firm and sudden. I looked over, startled, and found eyes that had seen too much. She was in her 60s, maybe older, with steel gray hair and a face carved by the years. A heavy silver bracelet jangled softly as she tightened her grip. "Don't drink another drop," she hissed. Her voice shook, but not with uncertainty. With fear. My confusion must have shown. Pardon me?" She leaned in, glancing toward the hostess stand. Serena stood there, her back turned but her body taut like a bowstring. "I'm a retired toxicologist," the woman whispered, rapid fire. I saw her pour something into your glass. It was viscous, not sweetener. "Listen. You need to leave. Now." My heart pounded so hard it made my earrings throb. "No, you must be wrong. That's my daughter-in-law." She gripped harder. Her fingers were ice. "I know what I saw. Do not go back to that table. Go to the restroom. There's a side corridor through the kitchen. It leads to an alley. Run." My breath caught in my throat. I looked at the glass. The ice had begun to melt. Something was swirling, barely perceptible, thicker than tea, denser than sweetener. My stomach turned to water. Across the courtyard, Serena watched me. She was smiling at the hostess, but her eyes were fixed on me. And I saw it then. A tension in her posture. A stillness in her shoulders. The way you hold yourself when you're waiting for something to fall. I rose on shaking legs. My knees barely held. I walked toward the restroom, the weight of her gaze slicing down my back. My breath came fast. Too fast. Inside the restroom, I locked the door. Pressed my palm against the wood. Found the corridor the stranger mentioned, a narrow hallway lined with utility sinks and metal shelves. I didn't hesitate. At 72, with arthritis in both hips, I ran like hell. I burst into the alley behind the restaurant. The air stank of garbage and spilled beer, but I drank it in like oxygen. My lungs burned. My pulse roared in my ears. I flagged down a cab on Decatur, nearly collapsed into the back seat. "Drive," I gasped, giving the driver my sister Matilda's address. "Please. Just drive." As the cab pulled away, I saw her. Serena. Standing on the restaurant steps, scanning the street like a lioness who'd just watched her prey disappear. That's when I knew. She wasn't just cold. She wasn't just cruel. She had tried to kill me. And the worst part, the most soul-splitting, gut-wrenching realization? I knew exactly why. But to understand why Serena's smile hid poison, why my own son let the blade fall, come back with me. 6 months. That's where the rot began. That's when I opened the gates of my home and invited wolves to feast. 6 months earlier, the iron gates of Beauclerk Manor creaked open beneath the weight of guilt and good intentions. I remember the sound, low, reluctant, like even the hinges knew it was a mistake. Marcus had been gone 3 years by then. Gone, but never absent. The house still whispered him in the way the floors groaned near the library, or how the jasmine outside our bedroom window refused to bloom without his humming. He built this place with sweat and reverence. Every beam, every baluster was a love letter in wood and plaster. It was a home built for two. And now I was one. Loneliness was a quiet companion, and I had learned to live with her. My days were simple, a book club full of fierce southern women with sharper tongues than teacups, tending to my garden, fussing over memories. I had peace, not noise. I had space. Then came Julian. Julian. My only child. My sweet, soft-hearted boy who cried when squirrels got hit by cars and still used 3 spoons to stir his coffee. He looked just like Marcus, but Marcus had steel beneath the charm. Julian. Julian always bent before he broke. He was 45 now, still talking about architecture like a dream he forgot to chase. He called it temporary stalling. I called it fear. And then there was Serena. God help me, I tried. I tried so hard to like her. She had that practiced kind of beauty, Instagram-ready, effortless only because effort had been surgically removed. She spoke in numbers, not stories. In efficiency, not empathy. Her laughter never crinkled her eyes. But Julian loved her, or said he did. So I smiled through gritted teeth, held my tongue, and set out the good china when they came over. The beginning of the end started on my 72nd birthday. We had dinner, just the 3 of us, and somewhere between the salad and the roast, the air grew heavier. Serena swirled her wine like she was conducting an orchestra. Julian wouldn't meet my eyes. He just stared at his fork like it held the secret to eternal youth. "Mom," he said, eventually. "We worry about you." I raised an eyebrow. "Because I'm not on TikTok?" He didn't laugh. "It's just, the manor's too big," he said, avoiding my gaze. "It's not safe. There was a break-in down the block last month." Serena jumped in, her voice syrupy. And you're so isolated, Evelyn. It's not healthy at your age. We only want what's best for you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shout that I was still capable, still clear, still sharp. But instead, I smiled politely and said I appreciated their concern. That I had Mary, the housekeeper, and old Frank who handled the yard. That I was fine. They nodded like I'd confirmed their worst fears. A week later, they returned with suitcases. The lease is up, Julian said. Landlord's selling the building. It's just for a few months, Serena added. Until Julian's new firm takes off. And you'll have company. Security. I said yes. Because saying no to your child feels like cutting a thread you spent a lifetime weaving. Even when every instinct in your marrow is screaming, no. 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 They took the East Wing, once the nursery, now quiet with old toys and older memories. The first month passed in calm disguise. Serena cooked, quinoa this, chia that. Julian fixed things. A faucet. A creaky door. He even cleaned the gutters. They smiled at me like I was made of fine china. So delicate. So easily shattered. Then the house began to shift. Little things. My reading glasses vanished from the nightstand, turned up in the fridge. My Mercedes keys disappeared from the hook, only to be found later, in the soil of my ficus. My medications were rearranged. My bookmarks moved. Julian would just sigh. Mom, you're getting forgetful. That pitying smile of his, God, it was like a blade dulled by guilt. It didn't cut. It scraped. I started doubting myself. Maybe I was slipping. Maybe age was catching up. Maybe the fog had begun to roll in. Until the stove. I came downstairs one afternoon and smelled it before I saw it, gas. Thick. Dangerous. Serena came running, shrieking like I had set the curtains on fire. Evelyn! You left it on. You could have blown us sky high. I hadn't touched the stove that day. I'd been reading in the garden, watching blue jays dive into the fountain. But their faces, so full of fear and disappointment, made me apologize. I wept that night. Quietly, into a monogrammed pillowcase. My mother had gone this way. Wandering. Confused. We lost her piece by piece. Was it happening to me? Then the silence came. The landline went dead. Oh, the technician's coming next week, Serena chirped. He never did. She handed me a brand new smartphone, too sleek, too complicated. This one's easier, she lied. I've set it up for you. Suddenly, I couldn't find my contacts. My friends stopped calling. When they rang the house, Serena would answer with a sigh, Evelyn's resting. She's having one of her confused days. I wasn't confused. I was being erased. My friends stopped coming by. My world shrank to the size of the parlor. My garden grew wild from neglect. And Julian, he watched it happen. He sat there, night after night, while Serena cut my meat for me, while she adjusted my chair like I was 6. And he said nothing. His eyes would flicker toward me, ashamed, but he said nothing. Then came him. Dr. Thorne. Serena brought him home like a surprise party. He had sweaty palms and shifty eyes, and he smelled like mint and menthol. He gave me a 10-minute exam in the living room, right there in front of the fireplace Marcus built by hand. And then he diagnosed me with rapid cognitive decline. He gave me pills. Blue ones. Yellow ones. To stabilize your moods, Evelyn, he said. Like I was a barometer. I trusted them. That was my mistake. The world dulled. My thoughts floated like feathers through molasses. I slept through the sunrise. I forgot what day it was. I forgot words, me, of all people. I saw shadows where there were none. Heard voices behind closed doors. And Serena would whisper, too softly for me to respond, "She's getting worse." But a spark remained. Dim, but alive. And one night, 3 weeks before the lunch that changed everything, I woke up choking on a dream. Drowning in black water. Gasping. Desperate. I stumbled to the kitchen for water, and as I passed the library, I heard voices. "We can't wait another 6 months," Serena said. Her voice was a knife. "The developer wants the land. The market is peaking now." Julian murmured something. I couldn't hear it all. Just fragments. "Still here. She's a vegetable, Julian. Thanks to Thorne's cocktail. We need that money. Your gambling debts." I stopped breathing. Gambling. Debts. Sell the manor. Liquidate. "We just need her to sign the power of attorney," Serena said. "Then we move her to St. Bridget's. The state facility. It's free. Free. As if my life was something to discard like old furniture. "She won't sign," Julian whispered. "She's stubborn." "She will," Serena said. "If she's declared incompetent. If she overdoses. If she attacks one of us, it happens all the time with dementia patients." My knees buckled. They were planning my disappearance. What do you do when the people you love turn into your captors? When your memories become a weapon against you? Keep reading. Because that night, I stopped being their victim and started becoming their worst mistake. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling the familiar fog from the yellow pill fight to cradle me into silence. But something inside me had cracked open. A cold clarity. A spark refusing to go out. They were going to bury me. Not in the ground, but in a state-run warehouse for the dying, behind locked doors and forgotten windows. They were rewriting my life story into a tragedy with a tidy ending. And I, the heroine, would never get to speak the last line. Not yet. At sunrise, I made my decision. I would not go gently. But I had to be smart. They thought I was weak. And weakness, I realized, was the best disguise. So I started pretending. Oh, how I played the part. I let Serena adjust my shawl like I was a doll. I let Julian open my mail. I let the oatmeal, my morning bowl of betrayal, sit cold in front of me while I tucked the pills under my tongue. Blue. Yellow. Every one. I would sip my water, nod obediently, and excuse myself to the bathroom. There, I'd spit the soggy pills into tissue and hide them beneath the trash liner. Some days I felt like I was losing my mind anyway. The withdrawal was a storm. My body shook. I sweated through silk. My head throbbed like thunder. But the fog began to lift. Oh God, the moment I could think clearly again, I wept. Not from fear. From fury. I saw everything. I saw how Serena always held my elbow just a little too tightly. How Julian flinched when I looked him in the eye. How my things had never wandered off by accident, they had been moved. Weaponized. I had been played like an old piano. And now it was time to change the tune. I needed help. But not from anyone close. Anyone Serena could manipulate. I needed someone with teeth. Matilda. My sister and I hadn't spoken in 5 years. Not since the argument about our mother's silver tea set, ridiculous in hindsight, but pride makes fools of us all. Still, she was the only woman I knew who could cuss out a priest and make him apologize. I waited until Serena left for work in her sleek little death machine of a car, and Julian passed out drunk on the sunroom couch. I crept through the house like a thief and pulled out the hurricane emergency kit from the pantry. Inside was an old prepaid flip phone. One Serena didn't know about. I dialed. "Hello? Matilda," I whispered. "Don't hang up." There was a pause. Then, "Evelyn?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "They're poisoning me." "Oh my God." "They want the house. They're drugging me, trying to declare me incompetent. I need help. I need someone who can burn down their lies and dance in the ashes." Silence. Then came her voice, hard as a coffin nail. "I know a guy. His name was Leo Vance. 32. A lawyer with a jawline that could cut glass and a reputation for taking down predators like it was a hobby. He wasn't the usual kind of legal vulture. He didn't smile too wide or speak in riddles. He listened. That night, I snuck out through the garden, dressed in a nightgown and courage. Midnight hung heavy in the air. The jasmine had begun to bloom again. Matilda was waiting at the back gate. Older, yes. Grayer. But still fire in her bones. She squeezed my hand until it hurt. Leo stood beside her, holding a recording device and looking every bit like a boy raised by wolves and courtroom losses. No pleasantries. No pity. "Tell me everything," he said. And I did. I handed him the tissue-stuffed bag of pills I hadn't taken. Every soggy yellow lie. When I finished, Leo nodded slowly. "This is attempted murder, Mrs. Beauclerk." The words clanged through the garden like a church bell at a funeral. "I believe you. We can go to the police right now." "No," I said, firm. "If we go now, they'll spin it. They have a doctor, a folder full of fake symptoms. Months of pretending I'm someone I'm not. I want more than freedom, Mr. Vance. I want justice." He smiled. Not kindly. Not gently. But like a man who'd just been handed a loaded gun with a name engraved on the barrel. "I like your style." The next week was a fever dream. Leo gave me a tiny camera disguised as a brooch. A voice recorder the size of a gumstick. I wore them every day like armor. Every insult Serena lobbed while smiling, every drunken call Julian made to his bookie, every time Dr. Thorne changed his assessment, we got it all. Evidence. Truth. Tape by tape. But it wasn't enough. We needed the final blow. The kill shot. And that came with Serena's most ambitious plan yet. The restaurant. The poisoned tea. The moment she thought she would win. She had forged documents, Leo found them. A new will. A property transfer. All waiting for my death. But instead of dying, I escaped. And now? Now we had everything. That night, back at Matilda's, Leo arrived with fire in his eyes. "They called the police," he said, barely able to contain the glee. "Reported you missing. Said you had an episode. Classic." I smoothed my skirt, poured myself a drink, and exhaled a breath I'd been holding for months. "Let them keep spinning their lies," I said. "They've dug the grave. I'm just going to hand them the shovel." The trap was set. But would they walk into it, smug and smiling, as I'd hoped? Or had I underestimated just how deep the rod had gone? Next, you'll see what happens when the prey bares her teeth. We set the meeting for 2 days later. Leo, sharp as ever, contacted Julian and Serena under the guise of a court-appointed advocate. He was calm, professional, his voice so clipped and clinical over the phone, it gave even me chills. He told them I'd been found. Wandering. Confused. But safe. He said I'd been taken to a private clinic to stabilize, and that, during my lucid moments, I'd expressed a desire to sign over power of attorney. To ease the burden, he said. That was the bait. They swallowed it whole. I'll never forget the sound of Serena's voice over the speakerphone. The way she tried to smother her glee with concern. "Oh, that's such a relief," she said, each word wrapped in fake warmth. "We were worried sick." She even managed a soft laugh. I smiled as I poured bourbon over ice. The only thing Serena was worried about was whether the ink would dry on time. Greed makes people stupid. That morning, I dressed with reverence. A cream-colored Chanel knockoff, tailored to perfection. My hair was set. My pearls glimmered in the soft December light pouring through the bay window. I looked in the mirror and didn't see a victim. I saw the matriarch. I saw the woman who once negotiated real estate deals with Marcus in a cigar smoke-filled room of sharks and made them blink first. Leo's office was perched high above Canal Street in a glass and steel high-rise that felt like the exact opposite of my house. New. Sleek. Cold. I brought Matilda with me. She wore black like it was armor and had a hip flask in her purse, just in case things needed to get celebratory. In the conference room, we waited. Leo adjusted his tie with the steadiness of a surgeon about to make the first cut. In the adjacent room, behind a one-way mirror, sat two more players, Detective Broussard of the NOPD and a representative from the district attorney's office. They watched, listened, took notes. It was time. Julian and Serena arrived, breathless from the elevator, both dressed in morning black like they were early for a funeral. Their smiles were too bright. Too big. Serena's heels clicked across the floor like gunshots. "Is it done?" she asked, dropping her expensive handbag on the chair. "Where is she? Is she sedated?" "Please," Leo said, gesturing toward the table. "Have a seat." They did. Then I turned around. I had been facing the window, silent as a statue. "Hello, Julian." "Hello, Serena." Serena's face went white. Julian made a sound I'll never forget, a choked, high-pitched gasp like a balloon deflating through a pinhole. Mom," he stuttered. "You look like myself?" I said, folding my hands calmly. "Yes." "Strange how that happens when you stop being poisoned." Serena stood too fast. Her chair screeched against the tile. "This is a trap. She's not competent. This is a stunt. She needs to be in a facility." Leo didn't say a word. He simply pressed a button on his laptop. The screen on the far wall flickered to life. Video. Crisp. Clear. Serena in the kitchen, grinding pills into my oatmeal with the tip of a silver spoon. "Just eat it, you old hag," her voice snapped through the speakers. "And go back to sleep so we can live our lives." Serena's mouth fell open. Leo pressed another button. Audio now. The library, late at night. Serena's voice again, sharp as razors. "We need that money. Your gambling debts aren't going anywhere." Julian's sobbing filled the room like a siren. "Do you want your kneecaps broken?" Serena snapped. "We liquidate her. That house is the ticket." Julian crumpled in his chair. And then the final blow, Leo pulled out a report. "We tested the glass of tea she drank at the Gilded Lily. The woman at the next table wasn't just a toxicologist. She's a federal witness. The substance was a cocktail of sedatives and arsenic. Low dose. Accumulative. Slow death." I stood slowly. My voice was calm. Cold. Pure steel. "You weren't just drugging me," I said. "You were erasing me." The door to the side room swung open. Detective Broussard stepped in, badge flashing, handcuffs gleaming in the light. "Serena Evans. Julian Beauclerk. You are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and elder abuse." Serena shrieked. Not a cry. A scream from deep in her gut, ugly, primal, animal. She lunged, not at me. At Julian. You idiot, she spat. You weak, spineless fool. You said she wouldn't notice. You said she was too far gone. Julian curled into himself, sobbing. No words. Just remorse. Just collapse. As the detective cuffed Serena, she twisted around to glare at me, venom dripping from her lips. You'll rot in that house, she snarled. No one loves you. You're a selfish old witch. I took a step forward. Just one. I'd rather be alone in a house full of ghosts than live one more minute with monsters. Julian was next. Quiet. Shaking. As he reached the door, he turned. Mom, he whispered, eyes red. I'm sorry. I was scared. Rocky, he said he'd break my legs. I didn't know it would go this far. I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy I rocked to sleep during thunderstorms. The child who brought me dandelions and called them roses. And now, the man who watched as his wife crushed pills into his mother's breakfast. Fear explains it, I said softly. But it doesn't excuse it. He blinked. You had a choice. You chose money over my life. Please, don't stop calling me Mom. I paused. My voice cracked, for the first time. Not today, I said. Maybe not ever again. When the door closed behind them, silence settled like dust. Leo leaned back in his chair and exhaled a long, quiet breath. Matilda took my hand, squeezed it tight. It was over. I had won. But as I sat there, surrounded by documents and digital proof, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Stripped. Like someone had cut away all the rot and left only raw wood behind. I had saved my life. But I had lost my son. What do you do with victory when it costs you the one person you loved most? What comes after justice, when the echoes of betrayal still linger in every room? In the next part, I'll show you what rebuilding looks like, and how a woman rises from ruin. The story made headlines. Garden District heiress survives poison plot by family. The papers called it a Southern Gothic tragedy. A cautionary tale. An inheritance scandal with just enough poison to make it newsworthy and just enough wealth to make it scandalous. Reporters parked outside my gate for weeks, flashing cameras at my front door like paparazzi waiting for a fallen debutante. But I didn't answer the door. Not once. The trial came and went like a storm surge. Serena sat in the defendant's chair with that same unshakable smugness until the verdict was read. 25 years. No parole. The judge called her a predator of the worst kind. She didn't flinch. Not once. Just blinked and stared at me as if daring me to look away. I didn't. Julian got 10. His cooperation, the late confession, the testimony, softened the blow. The courtroom was quiet when the sentence came down. Not a gavel, not a whisper. Just the sound of my own breath, shallow in my throat, as I watched the boy I raised disappear behind a pair of steel doors. I visited him once. A year after the sentencing. It took everything in me to walk into that prison and sit on the other side of that glass. He looked older. Thinner. The cocky slouch was gone. The haunted silence had taken its place. He picked up the phone, his hands trembling. Hi, Mom. I didn't respond. I'm sober now, he said. I'm taking art classes. I paint, mostly trees. I pressed my lips together. My chest ached. I think about Dad a lot. About you. About how I let it all fall apart. Finally, I picked up the receiver. I forgive you. His eyes filled instantly. He looked away, ashamed. But don't mistake forgiveness for restoration, I said, voice low. What you broke, Julian, can't be glued back together with sorry. We are not the same people anymore. He nodded slowly. And for the first time in years, he didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just listened. That was something. I walked out of that prison into the sunlight, my steps slow, my lungs finally expanding again. I felt lighter. Not whole. Not yet. But lighter. Then came the aftermath. The house was quiet, but not the empty kind. Not the oppressive silence I'd lived with for months while they tried to dismantle me. No. This was peace. Matilda moved into the East Wing. She filled it with loud opinions, bad jazz, and the smell of bourbon and lavender. We sat on the porch most nights, her bare feet up on the railing, her voice cutting through the humid air like a sermon. Remember when you said I was crazy for getting my concealed carry? She chuckled one night, swirling her drink. I laughed for the first time in weeks. I still think you're crazy, I said, but maybe just the right kind. I sold the commercial properties on Magazine Street. I didn't need the stress anymore. The tenants had always called at the worst times anyway. The money from the sale wasn't just mine, it became a promise. I founded the Beauclerk Foundation. It started small. A desk, a lawyer, and a mission to protect the elderly from the people who claimed to love them. We offered legal aid, emergency advocacy, resources for people like me, people who were being silenced and gaslit and pushed into the shadows of their own lives. Leo became our lead counsel. He had fire in his belly and revenge in his bones, and he took every case personally. Just the way I wanted. He's like a son to me now. But not the kind who needs me to write checks or make excuses. The kind who sits with me in the garden, brings me Vietnamese coffee on hot days, and says things like, "You saved yourself, Evelyn. I just helped you sharpen the knife." The house, Beauclerk Manor, breathed again. I filled it with voices. Laughter. The staff I hired through the foundation became more than employees. They were allies. Survivors. People who had escaped their own cages and were now building ladders for others. Some days the pain still visits. When it rains, my hips ache so badly I swear they're made of glass. I need glasses to read the restaurant menu, and I have to ask Matilda to repeat herself more often than not. But I have never felt more alive. One afternoon, I walked out to the garden with a glass of iced tea, unsweetened, thank you, and watched the wind stir the Spanish moss in the trees. The jasmine was blooming again. And I felt it. That quiet moment of triumph. Not the loud, cinematic kind. The real kind. The one that tastes like healing. I want to leave you with this. People will tell you that aging is a slow fade. That it's a retreat. A surrender. That the world stops listening to you the moment your skin folds and your hair goes silver. Don't believe them. Age is not erasure. It is an accumulation. We are not less as we grow older, we are more. We carry every heartbreak. Every battle. Every joy. Every betrayal. Our skin remembers, and so do our bones. If you feel the weight of silence creeping over you. If someone is managing you just a little too closely. If your opinions are being brushed aside with a soft, patronizing smile. Fight. Trust your gut. That bitter taste on your tongue? It might be almond. It might be arsenic. But it might also be your own power. And power, my dear, is meant to be swallowed. Let it fuel the fight of your life. Because you are the author of your story. Until the very last page. Don't let anyone else hold the pen.